So it's now 2022, and we're going to bring in the new year in style with a party in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. But before we jump headfirst into this week's video, let me first say this. 2022 is going to be a great year for aviation. And that's not me manifesting it per se, it's just a fact. And so with that in mind, my goal for the channel this year is to reach 1,000 subscribers. It might seem like a far stretch at the moment, but let's give it a whack. Alright, it's party time. We're bringing in 2022 in with style in the party capital of the world, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It's so famous for its good times that even Jesus came to visit, and he loved it so much he never left. And how do most people get there? Well, they get their passport stamped at Rio Galeão International Airport.
Along the tropical southern shore of the Bay of Guanabara is Rio de Janeiro, capital and largest city of Brazil.
The history of the airport begins on the 10th of May 1923, when a school of naval aviation was established near Galeão Beach on Governador Island. Which, by the way, Governador Island, surely named after the OG Governador, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just a simple airfield for naval pilots to learn to fly, until May of 1941 in the height of World War II, when it became the Galeão Air Force Base, in line with the creating of the Brazilian Air Force Ministry. I guess when the rest of the world is at war, you tend to get a little nervous, and suddenly a bolstered military force doesn't look at all that unnecessary. But the good thing for Galeão was that its transition into a military base came with a fully fledged upgrade. We're talking runway extension, we're talking concrete paving, we're talking a huge new hangar facility, we're talking an entire brand new terminal building. Wait, terminal building? I thought this was supposed to be an Air Force base. Well, yes, true, it is. However, the Brazilian authorities kinda had a sneaking suspicion that they won't need the aerodrome to serve as a military installation forever, so why not lay the groundwork for a simpler transition to civilian operations down the track? Having said that, the terminal that was eventually built wasn't exactly up to a civilian airport standard. It could handle passengers, but not an entire fleet of international airlines on a daily basis. The military base did serve out its purpose, however. Brazil joined the war in 1942, siding with the goodies. The base served as a useful staging area for Allied operations until the war's end 3 years later. And when the war ended, Santos Dumont Airport, which to this point was the city's primary port of entry, basically got straight on the blower to Galeão and said, mate, listen, we are under the pump here. More and more people are flying to Rio all the time and it's just getting too much for us. So the Brazilian authorities obliged, and international flights into Rio were gradually moved into Galeão Air Base. And very quickly, everyone could see the flaws in the terminal building that existed on the site. So within literal months, the decision was made to construct a brand new passenger terminal designed for commercial civilian operations. The terminal was completed in February of 1952, and Galeão became the primary port of entry into Rio de Janeiro. For 15 years, things were in cruise control. There were some minor improvements here and there, taxiway and apron patching, improved terminal maintenance, maybe a couple of extra car parks. But things were getting real busy though. More and more people were travelling through the airport. And actually, most of it wasn't international traffic. No, we're talking about domestic air traffic. Capacity was getting stretched so tight that in 1967, the Brazilian military government started an investigation into the airport to see where upgrades or extensions may be needed. And so, naturally, 1 year later, some very high-end fancy new passenger facilities were built at the military base. Yep. A new terminal with state-of-the-art foot traffic functionality, aero bridges, and brand new pavement. Built at the military base. Bruh, what? It's like saying, oh, I need a new car for my house here in Australia. I know, let's go ahead and buy a tuk-tuk that's in India. I mean, seriously. But hey, it's okay though, because at least 8 years later, the Concorde's maiden voyage was with Air France from Charles de Gaulle through to Rio Galeão. So I guess that makes it all better. No, but in all honesty, there is some sense to having the bulk of the airport's infrastructure on the military base grounds. Well, okay, there's not much sense from a civilian point of view, but at this stage, Brazil was still operated by a military government, so you best believe everything was going to be militarized. Heck, all McDonald's probably have armed guards stationed out the front. Then in 1970, the very same government created Infraero, a governing body established with the purpose of operating the airports and airspace of Brazil. Things continued to run smoothly from here, and then in 1977 it was announced that Galeão was now handling all international traffic into and out of Brazil. A third terminal was opened in the same year, and all major passenger terminal operations were transferred from the airport's original terminal into the newer terminal. The military took control of the old terminal from the military and still use it for their operations today. And then in 1985, literally from nowhere, Sao Paulo Airport just started snapping up all of Galeão's international traffic, and Santos Dumont became the new hub for domestic operations in the country. So suddenly, Galeão was quickly becoming less and less relevant. Very little passenger traffic, very little notoriety compared to Sao Paulo Airport. The government were not happy with this shifting trend. It was occurring due to a new large runway at Sao Paulo that better suited intercontinental aircraft. So the government did everything in their power to shift the trend in the opposite direction to push air traffic back into Galeão, as it is the national port of entry. They ran marketing campaigns, introduced legislation to make certain routes mandatory for domestic airlines to fly in and out of Galeão Airport, and more. It took almost 20 years, but Galeão regained its notoriety as the official airport for Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, showing a large regrowth in air traffic from late 2004 onward. But in between, the original terminal did get an impressive facelift. In 1991, the terminal was completely overhauled in preparation for the UN Earth Summit, which would see major world leaders meet on Brazilian soil. 8 years later, in 1999, the official Terminal 2 was opened at the civilian portion of the airport. So now, heading into the new millennia, Rio Galeão Airport had 2 fully functional modern terminals with the capability to handle an overall capacity of 15 million passengers annually. The terminals had the latest and greatest in jet bridges, and most impressively, they were shaped in a fantastically questionable configuration. And so, in honour of this, I will now refer to these as the boob terminals. Okay, so let's run it back for a second, because it's now 1999 and I haven't mentioned a single runway upgrade or renovation. And that's because there were none to this point, and it's pretty shocking. Not a single repair or upgrade in 40 years? Pretty ballsy. And in fact, it wasn't until 2009 that a proposal for runway overhaul was even submitted to the Brazilian government by Infraero. And to make things even more ridiculous, Brazil is notorious for being almost intentionally nonchalant about their infrastructure development. It's sort of an unspoken fact that in Brazil, if it isn't privately bankrolled, it isn't going to happen anytime soon. And to Infraero's credit, they recognise this very point. So they lobbied to have some big players in the commercial development scene to come down and take a stake in the airport and privately bankroll the airport's far overdue runway overhaul and general systems upgrades. And so in 2014, Infraero decided that ultimately the best way to get things done was to select new operators for the airport that were more capable of pushing through the much needed upgrades. Finally, a big contract was signed to form the group Aeroporto Rio de Janeiro, consisting of 2 really big guns. And the big guns in question? It is none other than the single greatest airport group to ever exist, Changi Airport Group, alongside Grupo Odebrecht, now known as Novonor, a Brazilian engineering outfit. All of this was occurring at a point where Galeão was being stretched to its absolute limits as Rio hosted the FIFA World Cup in 2014. And before the airport could take a breath, Rio then hosted the Olympic Games in 2016. Changi Airport Group was of course prepared to receive this traffic in high volumes by instigating an incredible 2-year plan to have Galeão's second runway developed and completed in time for the Olympic Games. At a cost of $431 million, the new runway was built and the old runway completely overhauled, finishing just weeks before the games began. And low-key, $431 million, that is a bargain for a brand new runway and a complete overhaul of an old runway as well. And believe it or not, that brings us up to date with the history of the airport. So let's quickly summarise what the airport looks like today. Terminal 1, or the left boob, renovated in 2012. Terminal 2, the right boob, completed a renovation later in the same year. a big multi-story car parking facility completed in late 2013. 2 runways, one at 4,000 meters looking in decent condition and the other one at 3,180 meters, not exactly keeping it a secret that it's 70 years old. An on-site military installation, extensive severely aging apron and taxiways, and an air freight processing facility to the south of the airport. Technically, the airport is built on an island that isn't connected to the mainland. So that's where we stand today. And as for the future, well, you know what? It's actually really hard to find much on the future development opportunities for Rio Galeão Airport. So you know what? I guess that'll have to be for another video. Hey, thanks for watching this video, and remember, as always, if you have any suggestions for which airport I should cover next, please leave them down below. I'd love to hear them. If you love this video and you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. It helps my channel a lot. Please like and comment below. As always, I'll see you in the next video, and have a great week.